Now, so I know that this is about the substitute reality. In other words, we're choosing one reality in favor of another. But it's saying that they're both in the sonship. It says one aspect of the sonship
Yeah, they're
from
all
the other. No, I'm no. So that
right.
if I choose, as an example, if I choose reality with a capital R and just exclude the illusion as non-existent, irrelevant, all that, I'm making a choice. I'm fragmenting the sonship.
Well,
I am fragmenting the sonship. Do you understand? This is the implication here.
This is A Course in Miracles. It is a required course. Only the time you take it is voluntary. Free will does not mean that you can establish the curriculum. It means only that you can elect what you want to take at a given time. The course does not aim at teaching the meaning of love, for that is beyond what can be taught. It does aim, however, at removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, which is your natural inheritance. The opposite of love is fear, but what is all-encompassing can have no opposite. This course can therefore be summed up very simply in this way. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God.
Today's reading is from chapter 18, The Passing of the Dream, and section 1, The Substitute Reality. To substitute is to accept instead. If you would but consider exactly what this entails, you would perceive at once how much at variance this is with the goal the Holy Spirit has given you and would accomplish for you. To substitute is to choose between renouncing one aspect of the sonship in favor of the other. For this special purpose, one is judged more valuable, and the other is replaced by him. The relationship in which the substitution occurred is thus fragmented, and its purpose split accordingly. To fragment is to exclude, and substitution is the strongest defense the ego has for separation.
I wanted to say, before we even get into it, there are several words throughout this reading that it's going to be critical to understand what these things mean, like substitute. What is a substitute? We know what a substitute is. In a football game or something, they pull in one guy and they stick in somebody else.
Or your substitute teacher, where you just don't do your regular
teacher,
work.
Your regular teacher is there. So what do you understand? Just casually, what do you understand by substitute?
Well, substitute is where I am. If I personally want to substitute one thing for another, that could be, I want a change of a bedspread, let's just say, I want to substitute this one for that one because I have a preference. There's usually substitutions rely on my preferences, and we have preferences for everything, and it's why we change up our lives all the time, whether it's a new house, a new relationship with a person. And we think that in that substitution, we're going to gain something that we thought we didn't have in the prior thing that we had already. And so to me, substitution is where I'm valuing something over something else in this context.
There's one line in this that really made my ears perk up. To substitute is to choose between renouncing one aspect of the sonship in favor of the other. Now, so I know that this is about the substitute reality. In other words, we're choosing one reality in favor of another. But it's saying that they're both in the sonship. It says one aspect of the sonship from the other. No, so that if I choose, as an example, if I choose reality with a capital R and just exclude the illusion as non-existent, irrelevant, all that, I'm making a choice. I'm fragmenting the sonship.
Well,
I am fragmenting the sonship. Do you understand? This is the implication here.
right.
So if I get all hung up with doing my holy ohms and trying
Okay.
to storm heaven with my efforts or my focus of intent,
Right.
to the exclusion of my stubbed toe, this illusion, light bulbs that need changing, difficulties, mood shifts. This is this world of fragmentation and pieces. It's saying, don't choose one instead of the other. Now, we read it as though, well, of course, God gave us the whole tamale, right? The whole thing, and we have chosen, partial appetizers instead of the whole thing, And I hear it saying, that line, read it again. To substitute is to choose between, renouncing one aspect of the sonship in favor of the other. We're here.
Yeah, and then the following sentence is, for this special purpose, one is judged more valuable, and the other is replaced by him.
Okay,
So-
can't it go either way?
Yeah, it can. Yeah.
Don't you think that's remarkable?
Well, that is remarkable. In other words, that choosing the sonship over the illusion is also still a choice that would possibly fragment.
Well, okay, and even your phrasing, the sonship, it's saying both are in the sonship.
Yeah, so,
Aspects of the sonship.
well, the sonship cannot be divided. I mean, the sonship is whole already. My idea that I could actually choose the sonship, because first of all, how am I choosing that? I mean, I can't conceive of what my choosing the sonship is. I can play mind games.
You mean the sonship with a capital S?
Yeah,
You mean God's plan for salvation?
Yes,
You
I mean all of the fragments that appear in this illusion to be separate, that are actually have never lost their wholeness. So every brother, every little thing that I look at in a room, outside, all the birds and bees, whatever it is, they're actually all in a one holistic, I like to call it the web of love or whatever. It's all still there. It never separated from it. But we appear to be, and like on a screen where you're watching something, we appear to be a bunch of separate items, but we're not.
Substitute, my understanding of this, I'm trying to understand, as we go through this is a work in progress. I'm trying to understand this concept of substitute, and others come up, other concepts come up. Substitute. In other words, when am I substituting? You used an idea of an old sheet and a new sheet. Of course, I'm not going to say, well, no substitutes here. We're going to use the same sheet for the next 6 months. Of course, you change sheets. You do. You
Yes,
just change sheets. The substitute I'm thinking here is true to form with A Course in Miracles, more absolute than that. In other words, it's I've been given a full life. And in this full life, I'm in the illusion. And in this illusion, there is an acceptance, forgiveness, and striking up from the illusion, striking up a relationship with the Holy Spirit so that there can be fissures, breaks. In other words, I'm here to divide. I'm here, and I don't know to say it this way, but in a way, here to do some damage to
In what
the
way?
illusion.
Oh, to the illusion, yeah.
That's what I'm here for.
Right.
I'm here to create some space, to create openings.
Well,
in
the only
that.
thing that'll feel damage is your ego, because you're
Right.
choosing.
Well, when I say damage to the illusion, Jesus said in the Gospels, I didn't come for peace. I came to bring a sword. Now, I could look at it in that light. I came here to rent the veil, and so that any entity here, any beings, any people, any consciousness that wants the veil intact, they want to keep that narrative going, whatever that narrative of the illusion, the illusory narrative.
Yes.
They will view that as attack. It will possibly be viewed as
I agree.
attack, right?
Yeah.
I don't mean to be a sort of like a downer or some sort of jacked up, Course in Miracles warrior, but I just want to point out, I have never thought about that possibility, that we are here to accept the entire sonship, and we are here very definitely for a reason.
Yes.
And even though there's a lot of focus on the idea that it's a big mistake, right? And that the ego is just a bad guy.
Well, it's an error. I mean, yeah, right.
That's solidly part of our thing here. And it says to choose one instead of the other. Anyway, I don't mean to wear it out. It's just remarkable to me.
Right. Well, that's true. And then that last sentence was, to fragment is to exclude. Substitution is the strongest defense the ego has for separation. So it uses it all the time, and it has reasons for its judgments. It rationalizes every single judgment I make of substituting one thing for another, and in particular people, particularly special relationships.
Well, and astoundingly, that ego can just as well say, I'm not one of those bad, disillusioned people, those people that are lost in some sort of mainstream lunk-headed reality. No, I'm an aspirant. I've risen above. I'm on my way. That's just as much.
Yes, it is. It is just as much.
I mean, if somebody shows up and says, I am strictly vegan, and somebody else shows up and says, I eat nothing but pepperoni pizza, and they clash. They're both clashing. Holy Spirit doesn't see a difference between those arguments.
No, it doesn't. It knows that we're making things up as we go along. We make up our personalities. We make up the world in which we are going to participate in.
Right.
In fact, time-space, I think, is way more plastic than we realize. But we're not going to go there right now.
Okay, paragraph 2. The Holy Spirit never uses substitutes. Where the ego perceives one person as a replacement for another, the Holy Spirit sees them joined and indivisible. He does not judge between them, knowing they are one. Being united, they are one, because they are the same. Substitution is clearly a process in which they are perceived as different. One would unite, the other separate. Nothing can come between what God has joined and what the Holy Spirit sees as one. But everything seems to come between the fragmented relationships the ego sponsors to destroy.
Well, let's see. The biggest thing, being united, they are one because they are the same. So these two separate individuals or whatever, that I'm here, that other person's there, and I have judgments as to whether or not friend or foe, or however I categorize those things. The Holy Spirit sees as the same, which means that what I really am, in essence, in the spirit, is the same exact thing as the thing I'm either rejecting or saying I want, is the same. That's the only thing that is real, is the part of me that is a son of God, and the part of the other that is the other is son of God. And I'm using part because that's the only way I can see it here.
What about the part of you that perceives differences?
The part of me that perceives differences is the way this world is made up, and that is my egoic way that I deal with the illusion.
How do you manage that? You just say, black, white, red, green, all the same to me.
No, I don't. What I say is, when I'm upset with something that I thought I could have, like more valuable, and I can't have it, it could be person, place, thing, or whatever, that I'm judging it from a place that I think that my value has to do with having or getting, or not having and getting. There's always a loss and a gain in the game of the ego. So when I have a sense that, wow, and you can do it on both ends. Wow, that was an awful encounter with so and so, and I have an idea about it. As soon as I have those feelings of kind of like, you wanted it to go another way or whatever, is the indication that I'm choosing something besides peace, and I don't want to recognize that the other is really an aspect of me, potentially, of showing me some things about myself, or it is just something that I have decided repulses me for some reason. It's just some sort of the way they're dressed, the color of their hair, whatever it is. And I've made a decision that that is not what I want in my life. Well, all of that, the Holy Spirit sees as with a big smile on his face, with a big kind of ha, ha, ha. You think that other isn't the same as you, because I have an object orientated that, this body, this mind, the way I think and everything else is who I am. The whole thing with the Course is that is to change as you practice it more and more, that you realize that is not all that you are. In fact, that's the fake persona that you chose to wear while you came into this world. And the real world doesn't have the personality of Joanna. It doesn't have that kind of a distinction. It's very frightening to the ego because we're very, very attached to the concept of our ability to discern, to distinguish, to make judgment, to put the categories of this there, or the categories of this, that, there, what's good, what's evil, and everything else. And I would say that from the Holy Spirit's standpoint, it's like, you don't understand, you're asleep, and what you need to do is awaken. The dream gets more and more complex.
I'm getting there are these two realities that I've become accustomed to looking at them as, let's say, the Holy Spirit and then the illusion. These two separate realities, and they're like this, and we choose the Holy Spirit over the illusion. But here I'm getting a more radical interpretation, which is I have preferences, and there are things that decidedly shift me towards pleasure and others towards pain. And this is a world for me to manage for the well-being of the entire sonship, for everyone everywhere.
Yeah.
So part of that is, let's say there is that thing that, let's say, I don't know, let's say there's that thing out there that I think I want, and I say to myself, I'm reaching out for it I'm reaching out for it out of my preferences and even neurosis and stuff like that. And I go, now wait, that's an illusion. If you're wanting, if you're grasping, that means, you're chasing the dream, you're chasing the illusion. So don't do that. Now, the radical difference I'm seeing is in that concept of now. Right. Because there's a world where the preference is something we have to heal, we have to deal with, and you don't heal it by squashing it or eliminating it.
No.
You have to bring that preference to spirit and not say within myself, I've risen above. Watch me eliminate all preferences. And live in my austere way, as Louise von Franz, Carl Jung's greatest disciple, and writer. She said she had a kid that had, developed heroic abilities to wander in the Alps, sleeping only on a sheet, able to regulate his body temperature. And she criticized him and said, you're only trying to escape from your conventional life. You've developed all these heroic abilities, all of these austerities to escape life.
Right. So really it comes down to, I like to practice in my mind, pretending that all things are my sand painting. That means it can come and it can be beautiful and you can enjoy it while it's there, but it can as easily be blown away with the wind.
Yeah, just sweep it away, right?
Just sweep it away. So non-attachment to my preferences. Yeah, the more attached I am, the more upset I get when it doesn't stay the same, or I lose control of that thing that I thought was so great in my life. It could be you, it could be the home, it could be a vacation, it could be whatever. And so I set myself up for disappointment every time I'm attached to an outcome, to ways of being, and I will wish to choose to substitute or replace anything that I have valued in that way almost immediately, instead of letting it kind of go, sitting with the emptiness that thing was. Let's say I had a beautiful whatever, a vase that was huge, Ming Dynasty in the corner. I finally got it, and I hit it with a vacuum and it smashed. Okay, my attachment to that thing is the thing that upset me because I placed a lot of value on it, and therefore that is
Right.
now
Okay, the
gone.
glass is already broken, and therefore we don't get upset when the glass breaks because when we bought it, it already was broken.
Well,
That's the Zen thing.
That is the Zen thing, but the thing of it is, it does help me and I don't know how other people deal with it, to practice saying that this could be gone tomorrow.
Right,
And
yeah.
let me just set with that and be kind of okay that the temporal world has constant change. And my attachment to people, place, thing, and everything else, which is where my ego wants. And I'm not saying that I don't have my nervousness when things start to change up too
Okay, well
much.
let me present it this way. I mean, I want to present it this way. Here's my Ming vase,
Uh-huh.
and here's my broken Ming vase.
Mm-hmm.
In between is me, who the Ming vase, even though I don't even know what a Ming vase is.
I only kind of know because
I know,
of
we always say that, right? It's always the Ming vase, But anyway, so it's some
I don't really
Chinese
know
thing. I
either.
guess it's 1 billion years old. But anyway, so there's in the center is me, the connoisseur. I'm attached. The Ming vase means that I've elevated myself to a certain level of taste and aesthetic value. I'm an aesthete, an aesthetic
Yes.
athlete, and so that's the third thing, is me in the middle, just, really protecting and holding and polishing the Ming vase and its values and all that. On the other hand, there is the broken Ming vase. So I have me with my relationship with the Ming vase that's all distorted. I got the broken Ming vase that's happening any day when the bull in the china shop happens. And then I've got, the whole Ming vase like this. So I've got several things going on. My point of saying all that is that idea about me being, let's say, devastated, crushed. I want to jump off a bridge if the Ming vase breaks. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I mean, my world goes to hell. I'm no longer worth anything. My relationships are unhealable. Everything goes south. I can't, I am one. That's it.
Yes.
That's part of me.
Right.
No less than the broken vase, no less than the whole
Right.
vase. The broken, diluted self is also my possession.
Yes.
It's also mine. It's mine to manage. And I can't say bad self, attachment, bad.
you can't.
No, I know you're saying that.
No, I agree.
That's usually called spiritual practice. Get rid of all of those attachments. And what I'm saying is, like Louise von Franz said about that kid, this world is one of risk. I like red stuff. Red stuff gets pinged. People key the side of my red Corvette.
Yeah.
This stuff happens here, and I'm the agency in that. I'm me. I'm the one that's creating that stupid melodrama about stuff, Ming vases that break and whatnot.
And people and dogs and cats.
But that's me. I am one.
yes.
I am one. It's not like I become one when I get rid of that.
No, that's true.
I'm one with it.
yes. You're one with all of it now.
So that no matter how messed up I am,
Absolutely. That's true.
that is part of the oneness of me. Now, let's go now, up, above, now, the transcendent now that gets above it. Smile on the whole thing. You have to smile on the whole thing.
That's right. That's right. Above the battlefield.
And not reject it.
That's true. That's very true.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. Shall we go on?
Yeah.
Paragraph 3. The one emotion in which the substitution is impossible is love. Fear involves substitution by definition, for it is love's replacement. Fear is both a fragmented and fragmenting emotion. It seems to take many forms, and each one seems to require a different form of acting out for satisfaction. While this appears to introduce quite variable behavior, a far more serious effect lies in the fragmented perception from which the behavior stems. No one is seen complete. The body is emphasized with special emphasis on certain parts and used as the standard for comparison of acceptance or rejection for acting out a special form of fear.
Okay, we know this. We know this, right? That, I like this aspect of a person. I like their face, but not their body, or I like their personality, but not their sense of humor. Or I like their sense of humor, but the rest is a throwaway. So we do that kind of thing.
Right.
Right? And that seems like a really, really easy place to go with this.
Right.
An easy one. For me, I'm going to drag it back to the other. A more difficult place to go with that is that I do have preferences for a sense of humor over a face. I do have a preference for a body over a sense of humor, or a sense of humor over, whatever. Their choice of, outdoor activities, whatever. I have preferences, but I am one. I am one. And that the solutions to those judgments and fragmented behaviors is not to come down with a stainless steel blade and say, slice off the fat and get rid of it in that austere way. It's rise above and say, I am one. I am one. That's what it's saying here. The Holy Spirit's methodology is oneness, not trimming away or excluding. It's like, oh,
No,
hey man, that is such unenlightened behavior.
I
That
agree.
is such unenlightened
It's to
behavior.
see the oneness in all the things that I see and decide that are different than I am. So, in particularly in relationships with other people, this is, it's going to get into the brothers and everything else. The fact is that right now it's gone into a paragraph that's talking about the body. The body is emphasized with special emphasis on certain parts and used as a standard for comparison of acceptance or rejection for acting out a special form of fear. And fear involves substitution by definition. So that is important for us to understand, that when we're dealing with substitution, it's a fear of losing usually something, or feeling like something has lost and now I need to replace it. So we go about, trying to organize our life again. And it could be, in relationships with people, it could be a death, it could be a friend moved away, it could be whatever. And there's a sense of, I'm not whole anymore because I'm used to that person being around. They have been my cohort in something, whatever it is, and now they're gone. And so, you grieve, you feel not whole, you feel like, I don't think that any of those things are wrong, but it's just to realize that I didn't lose my wholeness. That person didn't lose their wholeness because they are still part of the whole sonship.
But also to amplify
Yes,
what
go ahead.
is that, yes, your friend leaves. You perceive yourself as having lost that wholeness. You feel the wound. You feel the brokenness. And you go into grieving and you do the wailing wall thing and pound your head against the wall and cry because your friend left or whatever.
Right.
Or this thing broke up. It's not to beat that dead horse, to heroically eliminate my textual response to a preference and to a special relationship that isn't the true full relationship. It's a special relationship. And so I grieve because I don't understand oneness and stuff like that. It's to find now with a capital N, the power of now, get up above and look down and see myself in the grieving.
I agree.
And somehow have the compassion and the love of oneness in the Holy Spirit to see myself and to nurture that being down there that's grieving and really has a very difficult, if not impossible, time getting over the grief.
Yeah, and I would say that in the Jesus at the tomb of Lazarus, where they said Jesus wept, my feeling is that Jesus didn't weep because of what he thought happened to Lazarus, and that, but he wept because everyone else felt the loss, and he left them in a state of grief for a day or so because he had not come sooner. That was like 4 days instead of 3. And so they thought that Lazarus was gone forever. So Jesus wept, to me, is because he does have compassion. And so from that high view that you're talking about, it is the same. You attempt to gather yourself enough in those kinds of places so that you can try and remove yourself from the actual thing that's going on, and take a deep breath and go, try to take that 1,000-foot view and go, and do have compassion of self and other for all of those things, because, hey, the illusion is very, very palpable.
And the purpose isn't, let's say, to achieve peace and calmness down here.
Right.
Because down here, I might have to play out the full grieving, however long that takes, or the full upset, whatever that takes. But somehow to maintain, with the help of the Holy Spirit, to get up above and see that this is a particular kind of being down here that is one and in the sonship, and is there, the fragmentation isn't there. And at that point in time and space, it's, let's say, my responsibility to grieve, my responsibility to feel it fully. But then at the same time, don't identify with that fully, but see if I can see myself doing it.
Yes, I agree.
Paragraph 4. You who believe that God is fear made but one substitution. It has taken many forms because it was the substitution of illusion for truth, of fragmentation for wholeness. It has become so splintered and subdivided and divided again over and over that it is now almost impossible to perceive it once was one, and still is what it was. That one error which brought truth to illusion, infinity to time, and life to death, was all you ever made. Your whole world rests upon it. Everything you see reflects it, and every special relationship that you have ever made is part of it. This is the fix. This is, let's get through this just for 1 second. It's where I'm at in this chapter right now. This isn't something we can just flick away like a gnat. Okay,
Yeah.
In other words, I can't, just because I read the Course in Miracles, I become spiritual, I do the practices or whatever, I can't escape from a project that's maybe billions of years old, or millions of years old, or however time you want to look at it. I'm in it, okay? I'm a bodhisattva. Bodhisattva in Buddhist terms is I came here to heal everything. As Swami Vivekananda said one place, I will come back again and again and again until every sick dog is gone on the planet Earth. There's this feeling of like, we're here for the task. And it is a joyful task because it's the work of the Holy Spirit. And the closer we get to the joy of the work that we're doing here, the reason I'm saying that, I don't know if I've made this point yet or not. So many times in the quote-unquote spiritual realms, there's an exclusive quality, like I've left all that behind.
That's right.
My family of origin, they're all sitting there and eating pepperoni pizza. I myself am a vegan. And I do an hour and a half of meditation a day plus yoga, and I'm going to live 5 years longer than everybody else, just to spite them.
Yes.
There's a little bit of that.
Yeah, I agree.
Does that make, you know what I'm saying?
I do.
And this is saying, soften up, man, soften up. That's more separation. That's more.
Right.
So get me on the right track, because I got my head in a rut on this whole thing.
Well, my takeaway from this particular paragraph is that one error, that substitution thing, which brought truth to illusion, which you cannot do. You can bring illusions to truth, but truth to illusion, and it doesn't cause an infinity to time.
Yeah, you want the truth to serve the illusion. I've got my illusion, and the truth is going to come in there and make it real.
Yeah, right.
Okay, that's what it's talking about.
Yeah, so that one error which brought truth to illusion infinity to time, life to death, was all you ever made. And your whole world, this illusory world, rests upon it. So I like that it brought up the truth to illusion, the infinity to time, and life to death, because they're really, really good examples of how our egoic structure wishes to use this world to say, oh yeah, well, I'm just bringing my truths to, my world or whatever, or however you want to take that. Infinity to time. Like you could fit infinity inside of time, or that infinity is even related to time.
Well, using my example
not.
of the vegan thing, okay, let's say I've gone through, let's say I ate nothing but sausage and eggs for like 25 years.
Uh-huh.
Suddenly I become a vegan. I've seen the cruelty to animals. I've gotten rid of all animal protein, and I'm clean. I'm cleansed. I'm baptized in the food pyramid somehow. So what I do is I've decided that being a vegan is an a priori good that I have achieved. Mm-hmm. So therefore, I take that in my mind, I'm taking it to truth. Mm-hmm. The truth isn't leading me. Vegan is leading me.
Right.
And I have identified it as a good guide, a good goal, because it looks really, really good. But now
you're bringing your truth to the illusion.
That's my idea
of truth,
of something good. And so I let that be a standard for all other goods. And that's what it's saying is a formula for this disaster, is that I have...
Yeah, because you substitute, which means that you exclude all these others because they haven't risen to the awareness that you are, and so you exclude all of those, and then no longer can you help heal the sonship because you've done your exclusions. You can't exclude. You have to be able to see and recognize that all of it, no matter how ugly or disastrous or evil or everything else that appears on the screen,
or even just mediocre,
or just mediocre, right? Sometimes mediocre is really a drag.
That's worse. Mediocre can be worse than World War III for a lot of folks.
Right.
For us.
And all of that has to be looked at and brought to the feet of the Holy Spirit, because you don't want to put them on your altar. That's different. You want to clear off your altar of your ideas, but place it at the feet so that the altar can be filled with the truth. And then your mind begins to change and you begin to have witnesses to to what is really true. You may be surprised to hear how very different is reality from what you see. You do not realize the magnitude of that one error. It was so vast and so completely incredible that from it a world of total unreality had to emerge. What else could come of it? Its fragmented aspects are fearful enough as you begin to look at them, but nothing you have seen begins to show you the enormity of the original error, which seemed to cast you out of heaven, to shatter knowledge into meaningless bits of disunited perceptions, and to force you to make further substitutions.
So we're down in this broken situation. The broken glass, the Ming vase is ruined.
Yeah, we are the Ming vase, battered with shattered.
I am the Ming vase.
And yet my little fragment of that beautiful shard is what I cling to,
Right.
I'm over here. Look at that shard. I don't like the shape of it. Whatever. All of it, when I actually look at it in my mind as shattered light, like in a diamond, the diamond is whole, but when the light comes through it, it radiates in all these different colors and everything else. But then the different rays, the different colors on the wall, think that they're separate from the other one when they're not. It's all whole. It never lost its wholeness.
Right. No, that's good. And I guess one thing that this paragraph makes me think of is I try to hear what it's saying. It's warning me that this isn't an easy one or even a hard one to think your way out of. This is an existential paradigm so deep and thorough at the cellular molecular level that if I just decide, then I'm done with it. through practices, through awarenesses, through, pinching myself when I lose my temper or whatever. You're wrong. You don't understand. The Course is saying this. You don't understand the depth and the thoroughness of the fragmentation, of fragment after fragment after fragment. So it's not, please forgive me if I'm wrong, and forgive me if I'm misleading here, but it's not a joke.
No.
It's not just the big joke, like Gangaji, like let's just get the joke and we'll all be happy. No, this is us. It's where we're at, and it's a real deal. And to be preaching here. Sorry, I apologize. Preaching, to be a student of A Course in Miracles, to be a student of this, is truly to want nothing less than to heal the world.
Right.
And to heal everyone in it. And that means, as Vivekananda said, I'm willing to come back again and again just to heal a sick dog, or, until those dogs are taken care of. Or in the case of Leonard Orr, 500 lifetimes for one chocolate chip cookie, however you want to look at it,
Right. I mean, this world is sensate. And so, to be away from sensation.
The purpose is love, right?
Yeah,
the purpose is
right.
the purpose is to love myself.
Absolutely.
To love my neighbor as myself. To have a love that reaches out, and to realize, as part of that loving agenda, to realize I am broken on broken on broken on broken. And just because I say love, 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 doesn't mean I'm there. It has to be this simultaneous cleavage of living the illusion of brokenness and hate, living in it, steeped in it, cling at the same time to love and wholeness and oneness, and long for that perspective, and ask for that perspective. Show me. And it's a searchlight that shows, yes, you know what, that broken person down there, part of the wholeness.
Yes.
Always was, always will be, couldn't get away. Part of the wholeness. Don't worry, always was.
Right.
Right?
I agree. Yes. And I think it's interesting that some people think, because we fragmented society into these groups of, well, particularly among humans, gays and lesbians and transgenders and everything else, and we think, each one in these different categories, or, drug addicts versus, health fanatics and things like that. And we think that our little group is special and requires a special healing. But the fact is that when we decided to separate and we lost our sense of self and our wholeness, we all became broken in the mind. So all of it needs to be healed. And we can't judge any of it from that perspective of, well, I got past that and I don't understand why that's happening out there or anything else. But rather that it's all part of the scenery that needs to be healed. Okay?
I think that's good.
Okay.
Paragraph 6. That was the first projection of error outward. The world arose to hide it and became the screen on which it was projected and drawn between you and the truth. For truth extends inward, where the idea of loss is meaningless and only increase is conceivable. Do you really think it strange that a world in which everything is backward and upside down arose from this projection of error? It was inevitable, for truth brought to this could only remain within in quiet and take no part in all the mad projection by which this world was made. Call it not sin, but madness, for such it was, and so it still remains. Invest it not with guilt, for guilt implies it was accomplished in reality. And above all, be not afraid of it. There's that word guilt again, and I've been listening to several other podcasts, and the word is sort of bandied about as though we all know what guilt is. And And it's just not your usual thing, other than guilty, going to jail kind of a thing,
Right.
or innocent, not going to jail. I don't think the Course is dealing with that word in that superficial manner.
It's not. It's the first thing that came out of the idea that we could separate was the guilt. Because as soon as it happened, the guilt was experienced, the mad idea that we could separate caused the sense of guilt immediately.
I know, but Gil, I know that we've had this conversation before. I just think it behooves us to go there. Yesterday, when did you feel guilty? Today, right now, when do you feel guilty? We don't run around feeling guilty unless we steal cookies we're not supposed to have.
Right. Well, the thing of it is that if we really paid attention to the inner movement and things like that, the guilt comes from the sense that I'm abandoned in my own little world, and somewhere in there, I know that I did this to myself. For me, it has showed up as whenever I have felt somebody going away from me, in a relationship, I feel guilt and abandonment immediately. And I can trace it back to my original guilt.
I think that the guilt that the Course in Miracles is describing isn't the guilt of stealing cookies that didn't belong to me, or stuff like that, or looking at, going to an adult peep show or something when I wasn't supposed to, or whatever things I might feel guilty about, hitting a run of a puppy dog or something. That's not the guilt. It's structural. It's the way I perceive the world is through this guilt. And so to understand the pervasive and all-inclusive quality of the guilt, it's that I look at a world that seems immune to my effort to work in it or change it. The world appears around me as an obstacle, as an adversary. That chair, that couch, that lamp, the light bulb could go out. We've said that about the Christmas lights. It's like the world is constantly either in attack or potentially ready to attack. And that whole feeling of being oppressed by a physical environment, by my own body, by my own internal states, can feel oppressive. Those are all the fruit of this guilt. That's the way this guilt manifests. So that when we say guilt, it's not just like you've got a guilty conscience kind of a thing. I think it's very, very important. It's another one of the words in this: substitution. Substitute, guilt, and I think that there's some others. Oh, God as fear. That's the other one. God as fear. God as fear. We're going to have to talk about that one at some point.
Right.
But this whole thing of guilt, let's realize it's structural. And really, I want to go into myself, and I would invite anybody else to do it. How is that guilt manifest in perception itself?
Right.
The guilt is present in the perception itself. In other words, reality denies me the ability to see under this table. For all I know, there's rats and roaches underneath there. I have no idea. And I just keep my fingers crossed in reality that the world is working in my favor because I can't see it. And that whole sense of doubt, lack, limit, that is the manifestation of guilt. Let's be clear. Whenever the Course talks about guilt, recognize it's not about stealing cookies.
Right.
Because not very many people feel guilty very often that way.
I agree. And yet, I was just thinking about times when people, it's inherent in our structure, and on a very subtle level, because a person can say something a certain way, like as if I should have had the foresight to do the right thing at the right time, and it'll be placed on me. Well, we all brought our dishes to the foray.
And then you feel guilty.
And then all of a sudden it's like, I guess I failed and I feel guilty. Okay. So because it's easy to be triggered, I'm just saying for myself, because it's easy to trigger, it means inherently I believe I am guilty from the start. if someone can say something like that to you and then trigger it so easily, it means that, well, first of all, don't value the self all that much. And it's easy for someone to press those buttons to the point where you just feel guilty right away. So I think a lot of us carry an inherent guilt just from stepping into this world. And it's just there. It's just behind in that very subtle way. But there was, I want to go past all that because the first projection of the error was outward, and the world arose to hide it and became the screen on which it was projected and drawn between you and the truth. I try to imagine what that really looks like, because so this error of believing that I'm not whole, that it's shattered and everything else, I now, and I'm using substitute for everything. I'm substituting even God, a whole and loving God, with a punishing God. That was one of the first things with that guilt brought in, was a punishing God, one that can both curse and bless. So the world arose to hide it and became the screen on which was projected and drawn between you and the truth. So this is that veil that the Course always talks about, this veil, because my thoughts now are now working not within the mind of God, but from that guilty place of needing to make myself feel whole. So I begin to project things on a screen, including my Father in heaven being the one who both blesses and curses me. And so now I've got that screen between me and the truth. My inward, the idea that I'm projecting outward and all the things in my world are the things that I see based on my thought system, that is the unreal world. The inner world, where truth is and can extend and expand. Wow, that's inconceivable to my mind.
Well, this is the, I think this is in line with the conversation on structural guilt.
Mm-hmm.
The sense of something being in and something being out. Let's slow walk it. That's a made-up distinction. There is no in and there is no out. There's only a state of being.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it is. So when I start saying I'm going to have something happening in an in or in an out
mm-hmm.
state, I'm participating in the fragmentation. I'm participating there. Now, the so-called sense of outwardness is specially designed. Imagine God having an out. Just follow me on this.
Mm-hmm.
God having an outward expression.
Mm-hmm.
That implies that he can send out like missiles of divinity into the void where nothing exists.
Uh-huh.
No, God only
stars in the sky.
God only has one choice,
mm-hmm.
and that's an inward looking. That's all he's got, because he's everything.
Right.
So what God would say, God saw this or God created that, that's the exploration. That's an unfoldment of what was already there. Always. Mm-hmm. God is always unfolding, revealing, mm-hmm. exploring within what is already
yes.
there. That's God.
Mm-hmm.
So this whole idea of making something out there, like God was in heaven and he created some people and all that kind of
right.
stuff, and that somehow they're down there and he's up there, obviously that can't happen.
Right.
Obviously.
Right.
But it is valuable as a symbol of our conception of a God that can throw stuff outside of himself. It's valuable to go to the Adam and Eve thing to see how we have an idea of a God who can actually hurl pieces of flesh down onto a planet, and that somehow there's this idea of separateness but enfolded in his vast powers,
right.
like he's a superhero of some sort,
mm-hmm.
Like Galactus or something in the Marvel series, and he can like control these planets and constellations and stuff like that, but he does it from a point of reference. No, he is everything, all states, all being. It's all an exploration of God, of the only God, of the one. And so that this thing that it's talking about, an inward, where the only place you can find it is to be like your Father.
Mm-hmm.
and recognize that the outward thing was made particularly to deceive as a screen, and that the inward sense is the only place that you can go. But you've got to also get to where you go, there has to be a place there where the inward sense and the outward sense are
Meet.
simultaneous.
Yeah.
That's the now.
That is the now, yes. And
Anyway, is that
yes.
just confusing?
No, I don't know if it is or not, but my understanding is that, it makes me realize that when do I really experience God? I mean, in a busy day and everything, it takes quietude. We're sitting in quietude for a little bit so that I can feel the thing that I thought that I was separated from.
Okay, I'm going to throw this in there really, really quickly. Just as you said it, I apologize big time.
Okay.
Anyway, to experience God, what is holding that sofa together? What is holding these walls together? Why am I in a room? What are those pictures over there? How is this that my hands are doing this kind of a number? That
It's
I'm
all
seeing
God.
something. All God. Everything God. God is
All I'm
everywhere.
saying is, for me, awareness doesn't happen when I'm doing. So it does take inward movement in order to have awareness.
No, I agree.
That's all.
I just was making a point.
But there are times walking around and everything else, it's just like something catches your eye. It's the light, it's the butterfly, it's something. And you just go, wow, God's everywhere.
Call it not sin, but madness. For such it was, and so it still remains. So call it mad, but don't send it to hell.
Right,
And don't exclude it.
right,
Just say what it is. Let's just be honest.
right.
Invest it not with guilt, for guilt implies it was accomplished in reality. And the guilt that I would invest it with is that it has a reality separate from me that I need to shun, push away. It says, no, and above all, be not afraid of it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's part of the world we're in.
Yeah, that's the trick. Be not afraid.
This is the end of the first part of the passing of the dream, the section called The Substitute Reality. Continue with part 2 for the rest of this section. Thank you very much. We'll see you in the next part.